Okay, Morgan, I'm so ready for the story today.
Okay, so if you've heard episode 10, then you know what Dear David is. It is a Twitter thread. But have you ever heard of the Greg thread?
No.
On October 29th, 2018 at 10:53 p.m., Twitter user at GR3GORY88, so Gregory88, posted, "Something weird is happening in the woods outside my house and I don't know what to do."
Oh my God.
The now famous Twitter thread goes from October 29th, 2018 to January 16th, 2019. It is very long and there are numerous pictures with the story. So if you'd like to follow along, we're going to attach the Twitter thread, like the link to it, in our show notes. But throughout this story, I'm going to be reading tweet by tweet, and then I'll summarize like 15 of the tweets together. So you're going to hear Greg's like first person accounts, and then you're going to hear me like talking about Greg. Okay, let's get into it. A couple months prior to Greg's first tweet, Greg's grandfather, Greg's grandpa had passed away, leaving behind a very secluded lake house that is arguably not a lake house, but more so like a mountain house. Like it's like each of its own kind.
Morgan,
whatever.
is this the effing case that I've been looking for years?
Stop. I don't know.
I think it is.
Okay.
Keep going.
After his death, Greg received a visit from his grandpa's estate attorney that told Greg that the house is now his. He had only met his grandpa once when he was really young because his mother and his grandpa had a bad relationship. He never found out why or what happened to cause the bad blood between them, because anytime he would ask his mother about it, she would basically like shut down. She would get super annoyed and she'd immediately change the subject. So Greg's plan was to go up to this house that was now his, clear it out, and put it on the market and sell it as soon as possible. And Greg was a grad student, so he really didn't have that much time. He was starting grad school in January. So he had like 3 months in between this. It was very middle of nowhere kind of vibe house. It sat high up on the mountains overlooking the lake, and he had only passed a few other houses on his way up to the house. So there was no next door neighbors or anything, but more so distant neighbors.
Okay.
Greg said these houses were seemingly empty, so he had just assumed that they were probably summer houses. The area was beautiful, filled with breathtaking views, but it was so quiet. Almost eerie quiet. The weird shit started happening to Greg on his third day at the house. He left the property to go and get some food and supplies at the little town that was about 25 minutes away. And when he got back, he noticed something strange on his door. Greg tweets, "It was this artifact. I don't know what to call it. It was obviously handmade. It was made of sticks and twine and had some small bones tied to the middle of it. I didn't think too much of it at the time. I figured it was probably a kid from one of the other houses trying to mess with me. So I took it off the door and I tossed it into the fireplace." Taylor, this is the object.
This is the case!
Okay.
This is the case! Okay, yes.
By the next morning, I'd pretty much forgotten about it. And honestly, I had too much on my plate at the moment to worry about some kid's prank. So I got up that morning, made some breakfast, and went out on the deck with some coffee. I was sitting there drinking my coffee when I noticed something hanging in a tree just over the railing. It was another one of those artifacts. And it was just like the one, but it had a rock tied to it instead of a bone. And then almost immediately, I saw another one in a tree further down by the ground. I went down the deck steps to retrieve it, and then I started seeing even more of them. I found about 8 in total, hanging in trees all around the house. And then he continued to post like pictures of each one. Held to the no. I would immediately be like, witchcraft. Like immediately. Like, that's my first thought.
Exactly what it looks like from like, I don't want to say like altars, but kind of like a dream catcher, but not.
Right.
Yeah. That's the best way to put it.
Each one of these artifacts or whatever you would call them, he called them artifacts, so that's what I'm going to refer to them as, had different objects tied to them. Bones, feathers, rocks. And Greg was definitely getting weirded out.
Yeah.
He gathered all the artifacts together and burned them like he did the first one. He then took a shower to clear his mind. He got dressed and he went back outside to clean up the property. It had a lot of overgrown areas, and he was trying to give the house a good curb appeal, you know? Like, he's trying to sell it.
Right.
And you can't have debris and overgrown areas all around the house.
You can't have nightmare catchers laying around.
You can't have nightmare catchers laying around the house on Zillow.
No.
Like featured on Zillow. Yeah. Here's my bone nightmare catcher.
It's like at the bottom where it's like, only issue is that there's nightmare catchers
showing up everywhere.
With
so
animal bones.
While cleaning up outside, he was raking the corner of the yard when he saw something laying on the ground. Here he found a big blue hoodie laying in the overgrown area. He started branching out around this area to see if he could find anything else when he came across basically an entire encampment. Greg found a couple old socks, a pair of underwear, a few old napkins, a plastic spoon, and a beat-up notebook. Okay. When he opened the notebook, he found nothing written on the inside. It was empty. But the weird part was that numerous pages of this notebook had been ripped out. And he could see the pen marks on the pages behind the ones ripped out, meaning someone or something was using it.
Right.
So now Greg is a bit spooked. Like, it's obvious that somebody is camping out on his property.
Right.
Were they trying to scare him off? Were they the ones leaving these artifacts? The next morning, Greg was expecting to see some more of the weird artifacts, but there weren't any, and the encampment had been cleared out.
Oh.
And this was like a huge relief to Greg.
Yeah.
Because he immediately assumed that it was probably just a homeless person passing through, and that they're most likely gone now. And maybe they had some weird, like, artsy side of them where they like to hang these things and made them feel safe or whatever.
I mean, hell, I was out in the woods when I was little making potions.
Right, me too.
You know what I mean?
In the creek.
Yeah.
The creek. He thought it was the end of the weird shit, so he started focusing on cleaning up the house and property again. Realizing that his grandpa had absolutely zero cleaning supplies, he went back into the little town to get some. And Greg tweeted about his return trip back to the house. The driveway ends a ways up from the house, and then you have to trek down a path which bends around the side of the house to get in. So you have to park the car and walk up, is what he's saying.
Got it.
I was walking around the house when I saw some movement across the yard, near a tree. I froze, dead in my tracks. Someone was standing under a tree, staring at my house.
No.
They didn't see me, though, since I was also partly behind some trees and a good distance away. Whoever it was, they were wearing the same hoodie that I had seen in the grass the day before.
No.
Okay, Taylor?
Okay, there's a picture.
Can you see him back there?
Yes. Oh, whoa. It's not like I'm wearing a hoodie. It's like I'm wearing a cloak.
Yeah.
It's like hood up, spooky shit.
Yeah, very eerie photo.
Yeah.
As quietly as I could, I set down my shopping bags next to me, and I slipped my phone out of my pocket. I managed to take a couple photos, but the person turned and disappeared into the woods. I stood there for a couple minutes, too nervous to move in case that person came back. But they didn't, so I picked up my bags and I hurried inside. I picked up the phone to call the cops, but then I put it back down because I don't even know what to tell them. Someone was looking at my house. Like, any police officer would take me seriously.
Yeah, no.
And like an idiot, I destroyed all the weird artifacts from before, so there wouldn't even be any evidence of them. I felt like there was nothing I could do right then. So Greg was so scared. Like, I would be so freaked out.
I would not be there.
And he decided he needed some time away from the property.
Good deal.
So he locked up the house, he went through the back door, and he headed down the lake. He sat there looking out at the water for quite some time, thinking to himself, like, am I in actual danger? Who is this person? Were they just, like, squatting in this empty house, and then I show up, and they're like, they don't know what to do? And
right.
The last question, how the fuck do I sell a house like this?
Yeah, really, though.
Like, and at the same time, this man's tweeting about it.
Yeah,
like,
you're hurting the value of the home.
Each tweet is literally like, okay, that's going to take 10 grand off the house.
10 grand gone. 10 grand gone.
Another 10 grand gone. So Greg stayed at the lake until dark, headed back up to the house, but immediately got this feeling that he could not stay there tonight. So he decided that he would pack a bag, get into his car, head down to town to get a motel for the night. Mm-hmm. But of course, it did not go that smoothly. Leaving to get his car, to walk to his car, Greg says, oh, this is so weird. And that's when I saw her, the figure from before, standing right in the middle of my front lawn, staring straight at my house. I froze in place, completely in shock. I was practically right next to her, but it was almost as if she didn't see me. And then it hit me. She couldn't see me because she had no eyes. She had no fucking eyes, just shiny skin over where her eyes should be. And she had almost no hair at all. I wanted to run, but I felt like if I moved even a little, she'd hear me. So as quietly as I could, I went for my phone. I needed some sort of evidence to show the cops. It all felt like it was happening in slow motion. I feel sick to my stomach as I'm writing this, but I was able to get it on video.
Shut up, shut up, shut up.
Okay, so I'm going to let you watch this on mic, Taylor. Okay. So you can press play.
All right. I'm so scared.
Yeah, you should be. Look at that thing.
Guys, this looks like an avatar. I'm not even Where? Oh my God. You guys have to go watch this. Get that off of the screen right now.
Oh my God,
guys,
right?
It looks like an avatar. Oh, and it just turns directly. Oh God. Okay.
It's terrifying.
You have to go watch this video.
It's terrifying. And you can see him, like, when it turns at him, you can see it has no eyes and he's like frantically like running away.
It literally... okay, we'll get to that later. Okay,
his next tweet after the video says, "My heart is racing just thinking about this. I already said that. I ran back around the house and got inside. I scrambled upstairs and looked out my bedroom window at the front yard, but she had vanished. Remembering it now, it feels like it didn't really happen, like it was a nightmare or something. I called the cops immediately and explained what had happened. I'm sure I sounded crazy, but they said that they'd send someone by the morning and to keep my doors locked. That's so fucked up.
Dude, no, come now.
Yeah, right.
Come
right now.
Right now.
He says, so that's where I am now, alone in the woods, freaking out. I know I won't be able to sleep tonight. I feel lightheaded and nauseous. I don't know what's going to happen, but I'm scared shitless. And then Greg goes silent on Twitter, and people are freaking out.
Oh my God. But okay, guys, for all of our like newer listeners that are younger, you know how like with TikTok where it's like, oh no, something's off in this video and everybody fucking loses it? That was Twitter with these threads.
Yeah.
Like, you think that TikTok goes crazy? Twitter was absolutely fucking insane in these moments.
Yeah. And we have to remember, he always explains it. I don't ever really talk about, but he always explains it that he doesn't have a lot of service there.
Yeah.
He's literally like in the mountains almost, at a lake.
You know, by a lake.
There's no service by a lake.
Yeah.
So 2 days later, Greg tweets, "The past couple of days have been really strange. I also have shitty reception up here, so I'm sorry for not updating. They sent a police officer yesterday morning, but I feel like it didn't accomplish anything. I explained everything to the cop and even took him out to the clearing where I found the stuff, but it was all gone except for the notebook. And since the notebook is empty, it was basically useless, and I feel like the cop didn't believe me anyway. I showed him the photos that I took of the stick things, and he said at worst it counted as vandalism, but without physical evidence of trespassing, they couldn't do anything. Even when I showed him the video of the woman, he still acted really skeptical. He kept asking if I knew the person in the video, and I think he thought I was pranking him or something. So I ended up just getting frustrated, and the cop said to call the station if something had happened."
Something did happen.
Yeah,
I called you
something
3
did
times.
happen, literally. Yeah. So the cop leaves Greg, and Greg like immediately felt alone. He wanted to leave, but he felt like his mind wouldn't let him.
Oh,
like he was being trapped there. He physically couldn't leave.
First off, that's Voldemort.
Yeah, that's
who that was.
Voldemort is there, and the Death Eaters are surrounding him.
Yes.
Since the police arriving, he hadn't seen the woman again, but he knew that she was still out there. He took a walk around the lake. He went door to door to see if any other houses noticed anything, but every single house was empty. It was dark, and there were no cars in the driveways. He hadn't seen a single person at all until he walked out onto the deck of the house, and he saw a boat in the water.
Okay.
And the boat wasn't moving. There was 2 people on the boat, and they stayed there all afternoon, facing the house on the hill, watching Greg. So this is a picture of the boat, and that doesn't look like a regular boat. It looks like there's like a
crank in the middle.
Yeah, something.
It looks like one of those railroad like cranks where you know, on either side it looks like a seesaw.
Outdated boat for 2018 for sure. Like that's not a fishing boat.
And the 2 beans, or I'm just going to call them beans, are just literally looking directly at the house, not even moving. I know they're burning up. I know you're getting sunburnt.
Right.
Like they're just not moving. And what's weird is it looks like the water is just completely still.
Right. Like there's no wind at all.
No wake, nothing.
So the boat stayed in the same exact place until it got dark, and then Greg couldn't really tell if they were still there or not. And if it wasn't for the weird shit happening and knowing that every surrounding house was empty, like the lake was out of season, he'd just think that they were fishing, but his gut was telling him otherwise.
Yeah. Trust your gut, people.
In the morning, the boat was gone. He wanted out of the house, and besides the boat incident, the lake made him feel safer. He felt less stressed, and time seemed to move faster down there. So he made some breakfast, oatmeal to be exact, and he headed down to the lake. He felt better down there. He finished his oatmeal, hung around for a bit, and knew that he needed to get back to work on the house, so he started his walk back up the hill. On his way back, he passed this little inlet by the shore when he noticed something. In the water was this bright white object. He thought it was a rock from his view because it looked like a pearl of some sort, or like a pearl if it wasn't a rock. So he went in to get it. And when he picked it up, it wasn't a rock and it wasn't a pearl. It was a fucking eyeball. So this is the picture of it in the inlet.
Oh my God. It does look like a... Oh my God, there's an eyeball.
Oh, it's like an eyeball.
It literally looks like a pearl. But no, it's an effing eyeball.
Oh, man.
Oh.
He immediately threw it into the water and he ran back to the house, washing his hands immediately and then sitting on the couch for a really long time, thinking to himself, what the fuck is going on here?
Yes.
Getting up from the couch hours later, he looks outside and the damn boat was there again.
Jesus.
Same spot, not moving, facing his house, and the two people on board staring right at his direction.
What do you need?
And then Greg goes silent for 7 days.
Greg.
We get it, man, but you got to keep these people updated.
You got to let us know. Go get service. Come back.
Right. On November 6, 2018, he tweeted, I keep hearing things at night. I stand out on the deck and I feel like I can hear things moving through the trees. It's probably just deer or something, but I can't help imagining that it's something else. I'm sure I'm making it out to be worse than it is. Are deer nocturnal? I see them out on the road sometimes when I'm driving into town, and I try not to think about it. But last night, it was worse. I heard screams.
Nope.
That sounds so stupid to say, but I don't know what else to call it. I was brushing my teeth, and I heard something out the bathroom window. And I'm sure it was just an animal, but my toothbrush was buzzing, so I couldn't really be too sure. And then this morning, I found the bloody remains of something right in the middle of my yard. It was literal intestines, and they were fresh. I feel like I can't even post something like that to Twitter. Like, is it going to get flagged if I post it? I don't know what to do. Maybe I can upload it separately or share the link or something. And he does just that. So Greg then posts a link in his next tweet that will take any user that clicks on it to this site, imgur.com. People use that on Reddit to post links. Taylor, would you like to see the intestines in the yard?
I do. Do you know me?
Okay.
Oh my, it's, first off.
Is that hair?
It's hair. It's hair and intestines, but it's like, it looks like my hair.
It looks like, what I think it looks like is like a black bear hair.
Yeah. Oh, that's gross. It's like seriously fresh, like still pinky pink.
Yeah, and there's bees all over it, buzzing around. So he shoveled it up and he dumped it into the woods. And then Greg headed back into town to get some food, supplies, and some time away from the property. And it seemed like people in town are starting to recognize him. And he didn't like it.
Yeah.
He tweets, I didn't plan to be here that long, but it looks like I might not have a choice. People are nice enough, but it seems like the kind of town where everyone knows everyone. And I definitely don't belong. When I was in the hardware store, these little kids were following me around, giggling and making fun of me. And I think that they were twins, but I'm not sure. I couldn't really hear what they were saying, but I'm sure they were just making fun of me because little kids are jerks. Period.
Yeah, period, poo.
Amen. On the way out of town, I stopped at the grocery store, but they were out of some of the things that I wanted. It seems like they're always out of stuff. They've been out of eggs for a couple days, so I just got some Pop-Tarts and stuff and left.
Yeah, eggs, Pop-Tarts.
Okay, guys. So remember The Notebook, Remember when he went back to the encampment and when it had been cleared out and the only thing that was left was the notebook?
Yes.
Greg kept it.
Okay.
Greg picked it up and he wanted to find out what those imprints on the page before had said, the page that was ripped out. So on this trip to town, Greg decided to buy some charcoal. Now, do you guys remember in elementary school, in art class, we would do this?
Yes.
We would color in charcoal over things and it would bring up the words clear as freaking day.
Yes.
So Greg had the notebook and he wanted to know what it said. So he gets charcoal on this trip and he goes back to his house and he sits down and he starts coloring the charcoal on the page so that it would pull up the text that was written on the page before. And what it read was fucking sick. Over and over again, it said, "They took my eyes. They took my eyes. They took my eyes. They took my eyes." Taylor.
Oh my God. It's like manic writing over and over, like lines and lines and lines and lines. And then it gets more frantic and it's larger and it's bigger. Oh, God.
So creepy.
Well, hey, friend, we found your eyes.
So he posts the picture of this notebook page and he says, "What even is this? What the fuck? I feel like I'm gonna throw up. I need to go sit down. What the hell is going on here?" And then Greg stops tweeting for 3 days. On November 9th, he tweets out how he called his mom asking her about the area in the house, hoping to get some sort of answer. And she told him that he had actually been there once when he was really young. She still got choked up when he asked about her relationship with his grandfather. And then she asked him if there was still wine in the cellar. And when Greg's like, "Mom, there's not a cellar here." And she said, "Yes, there is. Go down in the basement. It's off to the corner. It's kind of weird, but it's there." So when they got off the phone, sure enough, Greg goes down into the basement, looks in the corner, and finds a cellar full of all sorts of antique shit and tons of finely aged wine.
Why weren't we invited, Greg?
Greg, actually, don't invite me.
Greg, I'll come pick it up and immediately leave.
Yeah, exactly. So he kept finding weird little shit around the property. Strange items. But then he thought, like, after seeing the basement and around the property, that maybe his grandpa was just some hoarder of some type. You guys know those yards that just have junk everywhere. And totally kills the curb appeal.
Dude, honestly, my grandma, my mom's mom, my ma'am, she is like she holds on to everything. She's not like a hoarder, like over the top, but like she keeps everything.
Yeah.
And she recently in the last years, we're like, "Ma'am, listen, when you die, we're just going to burn the house down at this point because we're not going to be able to get anything out.
We're not going through this
shit. So little by little, she started cleaning out. But we find so many crazy things that she's just held on to. And that's what I love about grandparents. Like, there's always just, like, little things that mean not much to us, but, like, to them, it means a ton. So then it transfers the value to us. But, like, you find so much stuff in your grandparents' house. Always.
Right.
So I just can imagine, like, especially if his grandfather was living there alone, didn't really have a lot of communication in the family, there's probably a lot of things that are in this house and around the property to make him feel more having, like, company. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I agree. So he's finding weird shit, like this, like, statue of this rabbit out in the yard, like all this weird shit. And then he comes across a, like, grouping of metal letters, and the letters aren't put together, like something that would be hung on a wall to spell something out. So he posted this on Twitter and he basically asked people to figure this out, treat it like an anagram.
Oh, this is so much fun.
So Greg stops tweeting for 11 days after this post. Twitter again, going crazy. On November 21st, 2018, the thread started again. He first explained why he hasn't been updating and how awful the reception has been, but that the wine he found has really kept him drunk enough to get through the day. He said that a realtor was supposed to be stopping by the following week, so for the last week and a half, he has just been really grinding out on the property, drinking the wine, not thinking about what was going on.
Right.
But then he started to get cabin fever, like, pretty bad.
Yeah.
So he thought that he'd head down to the town to get some breakfast and wander a bit to get his mind off of things. Greg tweets, "There's only one restaurant in the whole town from what I can tell. I went in there to eat and the whole experience was sort of bizarre. I'm not really sure how to explain it. Anyway, I ordered the eggs Benedict off the menu. The waitress had a pretty chilly attitude, but nothing out of the ordinary. And then she brought out my food. They'd totally forgotten the eggs on my Eggs Benedict. It was just ham and how do you say that?
Hollandaise sauce?
Hollandaise sauce, and that's his sandwich.
It literally looks like a big blob of mustard on a piece of meat.
Yeah. He says, I called the waitress back and told her that she'd forgotten my eggs, and all she said was, we don't have that. And I asked her how a diner could be out of eggs,
Seriously.
especially early in the day, and she just said, sorry, and walked away.
Is there an egg shortage?
It was so weird.
It's like the cream cheese shortage right now. I'm going,
where's the cream cheese?
I need the cream cheese now.
I was so confused, so I took a second to look at the menu. And then I realized that the description doesn't actually list eggs in the Benedict. Huh? And then I realized eggs aren't listed anywhere on the menu, even in the sides. So here's a little picture of the menu, and it'll say like, Benedict has an English muffin, Canadian bacon, and hollandaise sauce. Florentine, English muffin with feta cheese and spinach. So like there's
no eggs.
They're calling it Benedict, but there's no eggs.
We never said eggs Benedict.
Right, we said Benedict. What kind of diner doesn't have eggs at all? That might make sense in a vegan restaurant or something, but they have meat all over the menu, and Greg can't figure it out.
Yeah, with all this meat, why aren't we having eggs?
Right. He says, also on my way out, there was this family in a booth sort of watching me leave. They were all being really quiet in a sort of obvious way. They also had 2 twin girls with them. I'm definitely not coming back here.
No.
I was thinking about it the whole way home. There are too many things that just don't make sense, and I don't feel any closer to figuring it out. But one thing seems clear. I'm not welcome here. Mm-hmm. And when I got home, I found something folded up and wedged in my front door near the handle. Taylor.
Don't even.
This is in the handle, and this is what the note says.
It's a little note, and it's literally like a Post-it note, and it says, all capital letters, leave.
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 So he flipped it over, and it actually looked like it was on the back of like a tag of some sort.
Oh, okay.
And then after posting the note, the threat that says leave, Greg stops tweeting again for 8 days.
You can't leave us on this cliffhanger, dude.
I know. On November 29th, he says, I saw something out in the woods today. Anyway, I was taking a walk today. These woods would be so pretty if I didn't feel like someone was going to murder me out here. I was almost enjoying myself when I stumbled into a clearing and I found something strange. There was a single filthy chair overlooking a ledge.
Yeah, it's just like sitting on
a white,
ledge.
like fold-out chair.
Like you'd see at a wedding.
He says, it didn't seem creepy at first, but I got this funny feeling, so I took out my phone and I pulled up my Maps app. And sure enough, the chair was pointed in the exact direction of my house. I was probably a mile away from the house at that point, but it was still weird. It made me feel queasy, and I didn't want to stick around, so I hustled out of there.
Yeah.
But I'd barely walked 30 feet when I found something else. Something way worse. I don't even know how to describe it. And this is the picture he posted.
Oh, no. It's a skull.
Like an animal skull.
With like little like shells or something like rocks.
With looks like a spinal bone.
Yeah, like or like a tailbone, like or something like that. It's like sitting on top of it, but then there's like a line from the like top of the head, the crown of the head, forward of like 3 different rocks, and then below it, it's like stuffed with something, and there's more lines of rocks.
And there's a dirt triangle around it.
Oh, I didn't even notice that. There's a dirt triangle.
Oh, I'm sorry. It's a whole. It's the same. It's a triangle, the same shape of the artifact.
Yeah, with the sticks. Yeah.
He then posted a video of it, like getting up close with the details, and he said how he was freaking out, but that he couldn't stop staring at it. That he was mesmerized and felt like he was in a daze. When he pulled away from the skull setup, he felt dizzy. Continuing his walk back to the house, he saw her again. The same woman from before, standing up on a hill, staring at nothing. He hid behind a tree, hoping that she didn't see him. And then he posted a video of this woman in the same huge sweatshirt, standing still, staring down at the ground.
I hate it.
All right, Taylor, the video. There's no jump scare in this one, by the way.
It almost looks like she's hanging or floating.
Right?
Like you can barely see the legs. Okay. It literally looks like what's it called with Voldemort? The black shadows, the
Death Eaters.
Is that what they're called?
Yeah.
Yeah, like just floating around. That's what it looks like.
Yeah. So the woman ended up leaving and disappearing back into the woods, and Greg booked his ass back to the house.
Yeah, run.
So many thoughts running through his head. Where has she been? It's been weeks and he hasn't seen her. Is she a witch? It's the only thing that could explain the weird shit and the artifacts. Who is on that boat? Why is everyone in this town so fucking weird? And what's up with the eggs?
Yeah, what really though? What's going on with the eggs?
And then radio silent for 12 days after posting the video of the woman. On December 11th, he tweets that he found out what those letters spell. Remember the big letters?
Yes.
On this thread, sorry, just kidding. Anyway, he forgot about them until he found this mini library upstairs, and he was flipping through some of the books when he found 2 old Polaroid pictures.
Okay.
The first one was an old photo that he could definitely tell was taken out in the woods because he literally held it up and lined it up directly to the trees.
Okay.
But you could tell the photo had been aged some bits. In the second photo were the letters, the same gold big letters that he found, pasted up on a wall of some sort, and it spelled out Deep Water Chapel.
Oh.
So was his home a church? What does this mean?
Oh, no.
And then radio silent for 2 days. On December 13th, Greg tweets, "She was here.
No.
That woman was in my house."
No.
He says, "Sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. I can barely type. Sorry, I'll try to explain. All right, so I was in the woods out back yesterday when it started pouring. It happened really suddenly, and even though I wasn't far from the house, I got soaked anyway. It rained most of the evening, and I left my clothes by the fireplace to dry, and then I ended up going to bed early. Or I guess it was today. Sorry, I'm still not really awake yet. Anyway, I had this awful dream last night.
Okay.
I was on the deck outside with a bunch of friends from back home. We were all sitting in a circle, and my friend Eric was there.
Sorry, my cat's literally trying to get into the couch.
Talking about how creepy the woods were. He was saying how the trees were just big black silhouettes and anything could be out there watching you and you'd never know it.
Oh, I hate it.
He was sort of freaking me out, but I was trying not to show it. I'm all, I know what you're doing and it's not going to work. You're not going to scare me. And Eric sort of narrowed his eyes at me and says, I bet I can scare you.
No.
And I was like, all right, very funny, Eric, but you can stop now.
Yeah, Eric, shut the fuck up.
But Eric wasn't smiling anymore. He was just staring back at me. And then the whole mood seemed to shift at this point, and it wasn't a dream, it was a nightmare. Nobody in the circle was talking anymore, and it suddenly got really quiet. No sound except the wind and the lake down below. Any trace of joking has disappeared from Eric's face. After a long minute, he slowly cocked his head to the side a bit and said, Is there someone here with us right now who shouldn't be?
No.
All of a sudden, I was too scared to break Eric's gaze, afraid I'd see something I didn't want to. For a long time, we just stared at each other, and nobody said anything. Then, very softly, Eric said, Is there somebody watching you sleep right now, Greg?
No.
And that's when he bolted awake. He said it was the middle of the night. I was alone in my room, but I had this weird feeling that someone had just been there in the room with me. I laid there in bed for a minute, too terrified to move, too scared to breathe even. And then I heard something downstairs. At least I thought I did. The house is always making sounds, so I couldn't be sure. I hesitated for a second, then crept out of bed and went down the hall, trying to be as quiet as possible. From the second floor landing, I could see the living room and part of the kitchen. Everything seemed normal. I could hear the wind blowing pretty loudly outside, so I figured maybe I hadn't heard anything down here after all. I tried to calm myself down, but I was wide awake at that point and too shaken to go back to bed. So I went downstairs to get a snack or some coffee or something. I walked into the kitchen and then stopped dead in my tracks. There's a door in the kitchen that leads outside, and it was wide open.
No.
I know I locked it. I locked all the doors every night, and even if I forgot to lock it, I know I wouldn't have left the door open like this.
No.
The whole kitchen floor was soaked with rain. I want to leave, but I don't know where I'd go. I'm alone out here. Should I find a motel?
Yes.
And I just realized my wet clothes are gone. Someone fucking stole my clothes. I am not spending the night here. Boom, silent for 10 days.
No, Greg, no.
I know, quit doing that to us, Greg.
You can't leave us on this.
On December 23rd, 2018, he tweets, I'm sorry I haven't said anything in a while. I have been staying in a motel about an hour outside of town. When I left the house that night, I just kept driving until I felt like I was far enough away to feel safe. I called a locksmith, but they weren't able to come out right away, and there was no way I was going to back to the house without new locks. So I've been waiting it out here until I can go back, basically doing nothing, jumping at every little sound and feeling crazy.
Right.
Finally, a couple days ago, the locksmith called back and said that he'd come out. So I checked out of the motel and I got in my car to drive home. It was a pretty long drive back, and the closer I got to the woods, the worse I felt. In my head, I knew going back was wrong, but I can't just leave for good. I don't know. I can't explain it. I just can't leave. I don't expect anyone to understand. I don't even understand. Anyway, I drove past town and reached the woods, where the roads get worse and harder to drive on. They get twisty as you drive up to the house, and you have to be careful not to hit deer. I always almost see a dozen or so deer on my drive, but today there were none.
Oh, no.
Not a single deer in sight. In fact, the woods seemed a lot quieter than usual. I could have been imagining it, but something definitely seemed off. I was almost ready to turn around when something darted across the road. It was so fast that I wasn't sure I saw it at all. I panicked and swerved off the road into a deep grove by the roadside. By the time I realized what had happened, the thing was gone. I have no idea what it was. It was just a blur, but it wasn't a deer. It was red like blood.
Oh.
Worse, my car was stuck. It was my mom's old car, this weak little 2-wheel drive, and I couldn't manage to get it out of the grove. So I sat there for a long time trying to figure out what to do. I knew it wasn't a good idea to walk the rest of the way, but if I didn't, I'd miss the locksmith, and I'd have to either spend the night in the house with old locks or go back to the motel, which I couldn't afford.
Right.
I wasn't too far from the house, so I made the most sense to walk the rest of the way and call a tow truck from home. I needed to meet the locksmith anyway, so I got out and I started walking. Once I was outside, I realized I had been right about the woods seeming quieter than usual. I couldn't even hear any birds. It was dead silent. My footsteps seemed so loud. Every twig that cracked under my shoe sounded like a bone breaking. I was periodically checking my phone's GPS to make sure I was headed the right way. I had just rechecked my route and was about to put my phone away when I saw something that made my heart sink. It was another one of those artifacts, like the ones I had seen on my first day here, but it had one of my gloves tied to it. One of my gloves from the rainstorm last week. When I left my clothes by the fire to dry, there was a pair of gloves with them. Taylor?
Literally, and it's tied up so weird. Ugh.
I knew that woman had taken my clothes that night, and this just confirmed it. I also knew I'd find the rest of my clothes before I even saw them, and sure enough, I found more of those artifacts not far from the first. I found my other glove, and then my socks, and then my bandana, everything from that night except for the sweatshirt that I had been wearing.
She's got it on, doesn't she?
No. I left them alone this time. I didn't want to touch them. All I wanted to do was get back to the house, get the locks changed, and call a tow truck.
Mm-hmm.
So I started jogging a bit, wanting nothing more than to get away from those stick things. But after a while, I started to think that I should have been home already. So I slowed my pace, took out my phone, but it wouldn't calibrate this time.
Oh, God.
It couldn't seem to locate me in the GPS. Still, I could hear the lake off to my left, which meant if I kept walking alongside it, I should get to my house eventually. So I kept moving, trying not to think about getting lost. I must have gotten turned around because I was walking for what seemed like ages. I found myself in a part of the woods that seemed unfamiliar. And then suddenly, I saw something off into the distance. Something bright white, almost seeming to glow against the dark trees. I couldn't figure out what it was from a distance, so I went closer, trying to be as quiet as I could. And when I actually got close enough to see what it was, my mouth literally fell open.
I'm scared.
So this is the picture off in the distance. Looks like a nest, doesn't it?
It literally looks like a giant nest.
It was eggs, huge eggs, all in a cluster like a nest. They were enormous. It's hard to explain their size, but you can sort of see them in relation to my boot here. I forgot to put that picture in, sorry, but
That's okay.
They're huge. They're
Yeah,
like magical
gigantic.
dinosaur eggs. He says, I felt like I was dreaming. Before I even knew what I was doing, I touched one. I couldn't help myself. It was warm. And then I had the sudden urge to smash it to see what was inside.
Oh, no.
But then just as quickly decided against it. I felt sick, like I was going to throw up if I didn't leave right away. I left the clearing and tried to listen for the lake, and then I headed in that direction. I got to the lake shore, felt a little better. Since I was out of the trees, I had a better view of my surroundings, and I was able to pinpoint my house a ways down the shore. I never thought I'd be so happy to see it. But the rest of his trip back, he felt like he had vertigo.
Oh,
So it's like
no.
this part of the story, whenever we reach the giant eggs, that I'm thinking like creepypasta.
Yeah, like where's this even going?
Right. Exactly. Hi, Mila.
Sorry, my cat is literally walking all over the both of us now.
So the locksmith ended up arriving. He changed the locks and he installed deadbolts. Greg then called a tow truck, got his car out of the ditch, all while feeling like he was in a daze. And at this point, like, leave, my dude. Like,
Just get out and leave.
like, what are we doing? Like, leave. Like, what is the big deal? But he wasn't sure if he was scared anymore, because really he wanted answers. He wanted to know what was going on here. Does this have something to do with his mom and grandpa's relationship?
Oh, yeah.
And if they wanted to hurt him, they would have already. He's been there for 2 months.
Yeah, he's been there for a little while, and they've been dropping all these hints, like doing creepy shit to get him to leave. So is it now escalating?
Right.
Like, are they wanting him to find this stuff?
Exactly. So Greg went 6 days without tweeting. And then on December 29th, 2018, he told the Twitter world that he heard something and that someone was outside. When he was in the kitchen doing dishes, he heard a scratching sound coming from the deck, and he thought he was imagining it, but then he heard footsteps. So he headed outside when he sees someone running into the woods, and it was nighttime. So I'm with you, Greg. He was not about to run into the fucking woods at night.
No shot.
When he turned to go back into the house after seeing someone running, he saw what that person had been there for. There on his deck was one of the weird artifacts. This one was huge. It was taller than him, and it was leaning against the house. And in the middle of that artifact was his sweatshirt from the storm night, with the words written on his wall of his house behind it: "Fear the new moon."
Oh, no.
What the heck does fear the new moon mean?
Tell me
that
what
sounds
that
like a
means.
ritual.
Yes, that's what
Like
I was.
a ceremony ritual going on.
Ooh.
So a Twitter follower then looked up the moon phases for the area, and they told Greg that the next new moon is January 5th, 2019. So you know how people are crazy.
Yeah.
Like, they go detective mode. So Greg never posted his location on his own thread, but through tweets and stuff, they were able to find out that he was in Delaware, and then they were able to really pinpoint the location by the restaurants.
Okay.
So they tell him that the next new moon is January 5th, 2019. And then Greg doesn't tweet until January 4th, when he says, "It says there's going to be a storm tomorrow. The new moon is tomorrow too. I should be fine if I just stay inside." And then the day finally came, January 5th. Greg was tweeting how nervous and freaked out he has been all day, questioning why he stayed, saying he just needed to stay occupied, ride out the storm, ride out the new moon, stay inside. He'll be okay. Like, there's new locks, or he got deadbolts. Nobody can get inside. The locksmith went around the house, anywhere and everywhere, installed new locks. And he decided the best way to ride this out was to drink the old wine.
I'm going to say that's not the best way to write this out.
So Greg heads downstairs.
Oh, no. I'm not even ready.
Into the basement and into the cellar, knowing that the wine was the only thing to get him through the new moon.
Okay.
But when he got down there, she was there. She was in the cellar, facing the wall and staring towards the wall. So, of course, he took a picture.
Oh my God. First off, gorgeous cellar.
Gorgeous cellar. I'm thinking the house, through the pictures, the house didn't look as beat up as he's telling it.
No, it looks like a very nice house. This is terrifying. Why is he so close behind her?
He said that she didn't hear him because of the thunder.
Oh.
That
I would have yeeted my body up the stairs.
He says, "I couldn't move. I was petrified. All I could do was stand there like a fool and stare at the back of her head." And then she turned around.
No.
And she spoke to me. She said that she isn't here to hurt me and that she needs to explain everything.
You could have come up to me 2 months ago and just talked if that's what's the case.
She was leaving the artifacts.
Okay.
Just wait for this. So then he tweets, "She's sitting in my living room now. I can't believe this is happening. I'm trying to make sense of this and she told me everything. I'll be right back." Then he tweets, "First she says she made the stick things for my protection. She says it's dangerous out here. That's probably why she stole his clothes, because she needed his belongings.
Yes.
She said it's dangerous out here and that she was trying to protect me. And when I asked what she was trying to protect me from, she was quiet for a long time. When she finally replied, I could barely hear her. There are things in the water. I didn't really believe her, but I didn't have any rational explanation for the things I've seen. So instead, I just sat there and I listened. And here's what she told me. A long time ago, something came from the sky and landed in the lake. And it brought something with it, something ancient and something strange. The people who lived here began to commune with it. They protected it from the outside world, devoted their lives to it, and in return, the thing gave them a gift. The people in the town were blessed with abnormally long, healthy lives and many children, but it all came with a price. And I had so many questions, but I didn't know which ones to ask, so I just sat there in silence and I took it all in. And then the woman continued. In the beginning, there was just the one. It spent most of its time deep in the lake, slumbering, but over time it made more. Instinctively, Greg asked about the eggs he saw in the woods, and the woman nodded. There are so many of them now, she said. They come from the water to lay eggs, and the people take care of them, hide them away until they hatch. But when they hatch, they need to feed. At that point, Greg says, I was starting to put two and two together. I thought about all the twins I have seen in town. She must have sensed my understanding because she spoke again. I told you there was a price. The people in this town are blessed with many children, but they don't get to keep them all. When the eggs hatch, the people must bring one of their own to the woods because the creatures need to eat. She was quiet again and then says, they start with your eyes. I asked her how she knew all this, but I already knew the answer. I know because it happened to me. When I was a girl, my father brought me into the woods with the others and offered me up to the newborns. She turned her head towards the window like she was gazing into the distance. They took my eyes, she said again.
Oh my God.
I waited until she was ready to speak again. It was a long time before she did, and she told me how she was led to one of the eggs, how she watched it break open, how something came out of it, and before she knew it, something was on her, burrowing into her eyes. She wasn't sure what happened next, but that she only remembers the searing, the pain, and then suddenly she was free. She doesn't know if she managed to push the creature off or if someone helped her, but she got away, ran into the woods, and she ran until she couldn't breathe anymore. She said she was too scared to go home, so she stayed in the woods for the rest of her life. Eventually, the forest became her home, and she's been there ever since. Greg felt completely bewildered. None of this made any sense to him, but at the same time, somehow it did.
Yeah.
And he just had so many questions that he wanted to ask, but he couldn't sort through his thoughts. Couldn't figure out what to say, and then finally he asked, why are you telling me this now, after all this time? The woman didn't say anything at first. She took a long breath and said, it's the same every year. They come out of the water in the fall, they lay their eggs, a few of them begin to hatch early, then they feed on animals in the woods. They need strength to make it back to the water, but most of them hatch when it's darkest. Tonight is the new moon, she whispered. Tonight is the ceremony.
Oh, it's the darkest.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
Greg says, my stomach began to sink as realization set in. Realization about what was happening out there in the woods at that very moment. He says, we have got to do something about this. And he started getting out of his chair, but she just shook her head, do not go out there.
Absolutely not.
She's
Sit
there's nothing that we can do. It happens the same way every year. We can't stop it. It's been doing this for centuries.
And these people are just aiding.
Right. But Greg wasn't listening anymore. He didn't know what to do. And then something came over him. He jumped up and he ran out the door, ran into the woods. He didn't know where he was going. The rain had stopped at the time. It was dark. He couldn't see anything, but he could hear things around him, things moving through the trees. He could see lights in the distance, maybe fire, maybe flashlights. He wasn't sure, but he had no idea where to go or what to do. He just wanted to stop it. More than once, something ran past him in the trees, and he was using his phone as a flashlight and tried to take pictures of the trees, trying to see what was out there. And this is what he got.
What the fuck is that?
Right?
What is that?
There's a closer one. Hold on.
Okay.
And then this is the clearest shot he could get.
What the actual fuck?
No eyes, right?
No eyes.
It's like a bloody red face. Remember he said he got ran off the road by something that was red, like blood. This person that just hatched or whatever is blood covered.
And the teeth are scary as shit.
Yeah. He says he ran for what seemed like eternity in circles. He had no idea where he even was. And then somehow he was back in the same clearing where the eggs had been. and the eggs were gone.
No.
There was nothing but like little bits of shell, like they had cracked open.
Oh, God.
And Greg realized it was over. He was too late. It had already happened, and they cleaned everything up. So he stood alone in the clearing, and the lights in the distance were disappearing. It was getting quieter, and then he was running again. He felt drawn to the lake. He needed to run towards the lake.
No.
But it was too late. He then tweets that, "I'm back at the house now. The woman is gone. It's so quiet. I don't know what to say right now, but I'm going to leave in the morning." And then Greg goes radio silent for 10 days. Everyone on Twitter had thought this man was dead.
Literally dead.
Gonzo. On January 16th, 2019, he tweets, "I'm still here. I'm alive. I left the house after that night. I decided not to sell it. I don't think anyone would buy it anyway. I locked the doors and I got in my car and I left. I'm home now, trying to process everything. I'm not sure when I'll tweet again. I need to take a break and get my head together. But I'll be back. I have to go back because I won't let it happen again." And that is the last we ever hear from Twitter user Gregory88. And that is the Greg thread.
That is so good. That is crazy. Okay, now let's talk about what we think it is.
Okay.
Okay, you go first.
So I think that, like, I know it's a creepypasta. Like, I know it's fiction. I do.
Yeah.
But, God, like, what if it wasn't? You know, like, what if this man was really telling the truth?
And it has to be told as a creepypasta because no one would believe him.
Right.
And think he was crazy.
Right.
Because, okay, it's in the middle of the woods. There's sparse houses. There's only a nearby small little town. And that menu is, like, legit.
Yeah.
You know?
Like that. Like, there was a he posted numerous pictures of the menu. I just zoomed in. Mm-hmm. There was, like, a name on top. Like, there's so many pictures that were just so weird.
Like, it's almost a little too specific to be just fake.
Right.
You know, like, and I told Morgan, we took a break a little bit ago because my cat is going literally insane. If you're watching on YouTube, I'm sorry. But basically we were talking and I was like, you know, I wonder if this is real and it's just a little dramatized for, you know, clickbait kind of situation, right? Because this is so specific. Like, everything about it is oddly specific.
And what I didn't mention is that at the very beginning when Greg, he tweeted like maybe in June or July, he's like, I guess I'll start using Twitter again. And then his next tweet was like a picture of Eggs Benedict and it had eggs on it. And then his next tweet was like, oh, my grandpa died. I didn't really know much about him. And then he tweeted a couple random things here and there, and then the story started. And that was all his Twitter was filled with, was just this thread and a couple tweets like leading into the story to make it more believable.
Right.
So, I mean, it's a great creepypasta.
It's a great creepypasta.
But it has to be
a creepypasta. And first off, the editing on that, the storytelling, the timing of everything is perfect. Like, that is so good.
Right.
Like, everybody here is so pissed right now.
I know. You guys are so pissed. Yeah, it's not real.
Yeah, but that was such a good.
But just like Dear David. Like,
yeah, just like Dear David.
It so freaks you the frick out.
I wonder
because what if it is real? Like, what if creepypastas are all real and they're just marked as a creepypasta?
Like the Russian sleep experiment. Exactly. I could totally believe that to be real.
Exactly.
100% I could. I wonder if the person that did Dear David also did this one.
And just change the username?
Like just change the user. Well, no, just create a new Twitter account and like went through the entire thing, because that is the same amount of editing, storytelling, planning, like the details. Like, it's the exact same. It's so good. Yeah. These people need book deals. I bet they have them. I bet they really are like authors.
And That's Why We Drink said it in a really good way. They said it's like Dear David and creepypasta had a baby.
Yeah.
So I love that. I had to say that.
Yeah, that's so good. That was such a good one, Morgan.
Yeah, thank you. That's all. Sorry it took me an hour to literally read it. I never talk for an hour, but
I bet your mouth is so dry.
But you know what? It was like the longest story ever, but I also felt like I got away with it because I was just reading Twitter. You know? Like, that's literally my source for today is Twitter.
Thank you, Twitter.
They're going to hate it.
Sorry, everybody. It's Twitter. It was so good. Thank you for giving us that story.
You're up.
All right, let's get crimey.
Yeah.